Okay, so today we're looking at a monologue from Digital Solace called This Will Find You Right Before the Great Reset.
Hmm.
It uses a computer OS update as this big, extended metaphor for personal burnout and identity shifts. And honestly, right off the bat, we have to talk about the pacing.
We do.
The middle section of this script just suffers from this repetitive looping that absolutely kills the narrative payoff.
It's the spinning wheel of death. The concept itself is great. Using a system crash for life changes, that's a fantastic hook.
For sure.
But once you get past that initial setup, you just enter this circular holding pattern. The script just spins its wheels. I felt like I was literally staring at a progress bar that was just frozen at 33%.
It's the classic error of establishing a problem and then
Falling in love with restating the problem.
exactly, instead of actually advancing the plot.
Over and over again. I mean, if you look at the source text, the setup is brilliant. File not found. Motivation application stopped working. We're right there.
You're hooked.
Totally. But then, between that first crash and the final reboot, we get paragraph after paragraph of you can't force it, then programs are closing, then applications are being deleted, then you can't restart the applications.
Right.
It's sequential, sure, but it's not progressive.
It feels static.
It feels like the writer is trying to hammer home the magnitude of the burnout by just piling on synonyms.
They want to make sure the listener really gets how stuck they are. But the result is that the narrative itself just stalls. So I think the fix here is that the author needs to ruthlessly condense this middle loading screen section.
Right.
You have to maintain that tension and get us to the resolution before we just, lose interest.
You want the listener to feel the weight of the pause, not start checking their watch to see how much time is left in the video.
Exactly.
And there are a few concrete ways to do this that would immediately tighten it up. For instance, right now, there's a paragraph about how daily routines require conscious effort.
Yeah, making coffee, getting dressed, that stuff.
Right. Then, totally separate, 3 paragraphs later, there's a section on social connections failing.
And they're treated as these long, separate beats. You have to sit through the domestic problems, then some philosophy, then the social issues. It's a slog.
It's a mistake. Merge them. Just give me one tight, punchy section that says the crash affects everything. The coffee you made on autopilot now requires manual effort, and the friends you used to text automatically now feel like broken links.
Oh, that's so much stronger. It combines the domestic and the social in one single picture of the glitch, instead of, like you said, a grocery list of symptoms.
Hits harder because it's condensed. And while we're cutting fat, what about the phrase, you can't stop the update? I counted at least 3 different times the script says this.
Oh, yeah?
You can't force them back to normal, then you don't get a pop-up asking to install now, and later you have no choice, you can't cancel it.
It stops being a metaphor at that point.
Yeah.
It just starts feeling like a lecture. You're kind of badgering the audience.
Just cut the third one. Cut it entirely. The listener isn't stupid. They get the premise. They're locked in. We don't need to hammer them with their own powerlessness.
Okay, I like that.
And actually, speaking of pacing, there's a structural tweak with the call to action. The narrator asks the listener to comment, I'm resetting now. Right now, that's placed really late in the script.
So you think that should move up to break up the monologue?
100%. If you move that engagement prompt earlier, right into the middle of this loading screen section we're trying to fix, it turns that passive waiting into an active moment. It acknowledges the listener before we get to the final climax. It wakes them up.
That makes a lot of sense. It turns the waiting into a communal action, which keeps the energy high. Okay, so even if we fix the pacing, we still have to deal with the imagery.
The relentless adherence to the operating system metaphor is actually dehumanizing the emotional core of the whole experience.
This is the double-edged sword of high-concept writing, right? You commit so hard to the bit that you lose the reality of what you're describing.
Yes. The tech language, glitch, OS, hardware, deprecated software, that's the hook. That's what makes it cool and clickable. But it creates this massive emotional distance.
It's clinical, sterile.
It's cold. When the script talks about purging files or severing connections, it's talking about losing cherished relationships or a career ending or a dream dying. But because we're using IT speak, it just feels like data management.
It feels like you're at the Genius Bar.
Not in therapy.
Exactly. So the goal isn't to ditch the metaphor, that's the whole brand identity, but to layer it. The fix has to be blending the mechanical with visceral somatic language to bridge that gap between machine and human.
Yeah.
We need the listener to feel the loss, not just understand the logic of it.
Precisely. You keep the tech frame, but you fill it with human blood. For example, the script says, relationships are broken connections being severed. That's clear, but you don't feel it. What if we describe the physical sensation of that?
Like the anxiety in your chest? The actual somatic response?
Yes. Instead of just the connection is severed, you could say you feel the silence in the room like a network error, a physical tightness in your chest where the signal used to be. You ground the network error in the body.
I love that. Tightness where the signal used to be. It connects the abstract concept to a physical symptom the listener is probably feeling right now.
Exactly. And there's another spot, the part about parents. The script says, those shoulds are corrupted files, uploaded by people who couldn't see who you actually are, which is a very intellectual, very safe way to describe a really painful realization about your family.
It's a buffer. It protects the listener from the pain of rejecting their parents' expectations.
Which is the exact opposite of what we want. We want them to process it, so acknowledge the pain. You could say something like, deleting the corrupted file of your parents' expectations feels like a betrayal. It hurts to drag that folder to the trash.
Oh, that's so much more powerful. You acknowledge the emotion of the computer action.
Right.
And I think there's a huge missed opportunity with the idea of overheating. The script mentions the system freezing, but it misses the physical reality of burnout, which is heat.
It mentions exhaustion and trying to run deprecated software, but it all stays in the head. I propose explicitly using overheating to describe that physical exhaustion. Something like, your fan is spinning so loud you can't hear yourself think. Your body is hot to the touch from processing data it can't handle.
That connects the machine metaphor directly to the body's cortisol response.
Now you're not just talking about a computer. You're talking about a fever. You're talking about inflammation. That's an immersive experience that validates what the listener is actually suffering through.
That validation is key, which brings us to the next point, which is how the listener is told to handle all. The framing of the transformation as an entirely involuntary forced shutdown, it risks disempowering the audience a lot.
This is a delicate balance, and I want to give the author credit here because I get the intent. The script repeatedly emphasizes a lack of control. You have no choice, you can't stop it. It initiates a forced shutdown.
The intent is to relieve guilt. It's telling the listener, hey, it's not your fault you're failing, it's a system requirement.
Yes, and that's valuable at first. But the risk is that focusing only on no choice pushes too far into fatalism.
It makes the listener feel like a victim of their own mind, not a participant in their own growth. If the update is just happening to me, then I'm just a passive observer, just watching the progress bar and hoping the power doesn't go out.
And paradoxically, that can actually make the anxiety worse, because if I can't control it, I'm helpless. So the suggestion has to be to reframe surrender as an active, courageous choice, not a passive victimization.
Yes, we want to shift from victim of the update to facilitator of the update.
So how do you do that without breaking the whole forced update metaphor?
It's a subtle phrasing shift, but it changes the entire psychology. Right now it says you have no choice. I'd suggest changing that to your power lies in allowing the update. Do you see the difference?
It's massive. One is submission, the other is permission. One is giving up, the other is opening the door.
Exactly. And there's another line. You can't restart the applications. That feels like a restriction from the outside. What if we tried, you are choosing to stop clicking on applications that no longer serve you?
That puts the mouse back in the listener's hand. Even if the system is crashing, my reaction to the crash is where my agency lives.
It is. And this is crucial for the section about the darkness between systems, that black screen moment. The script frames this as being stuck, locked out, in limbo. I think we can frame this not as being locked out, but as holding space.
Holding space implies active patience. It implies work is being done in the dark.
Right. You aren't just staring at a black screen. You are holding space for the new software to load. It turns waiting into a verb. It turns paralysis into a necessary, active state. It transforms the listener from a bricked phone into a person undergoing a metamorphosis.
The promise of the reboot, the light at the end of the tunnel, it lacks the concrete detail you need to really motivate someone through that darkness.
We see this all the time in motivational content. The setup, the pain, the struggle, the crash is described in 4K high definition. We know exactly what the crash feels like because we're in it.
Right.
But the solution, the post-reset life, it gets very blurry. It gets very abstract.
The material makes a strong case for the struggle, but the payoff is just abstract buzzword.
Yeah, the script uses words like wonder, power, new frequency, new capabilities. It says you'll have access to capabilities you didn't even know were possible. And that sounds nice, but honestly, it's vaporware.
Ha, yeah.
It doesn't tell me what my Tuesday morning looks like after the reset. It doesn't tell me how my life is actually different.
It's the so what fact. The suggestion here, Sim, you have to ground the abstract upgrade in reality. Give us specific, tangible examples of what life looks like after the reset is done.
We need to show, not just tell. Instead of capabilities you didn't know were possible, give me a concrete behavioral change. For example, the ability to set a boundary without feeling a spike of panic.
That's incredibly specific and so relatable. That is a real superpower for a lot of people.
And it's a genuine upgrade to a human operating system. Or how about waking up with clear intent rather than immediate anxiety? That is a tangible result of a system reboot. That's something I can visualize and want.
What about the new connections part? The script calls them people who match your frequency.
Again, frequency is a little woo-woo. It's fine to keep it, but let's bolster it with something functional. Define those new connections practically. How about relationships where you don't have to explain your silence?
Oof, yeah, that paints a picture of safety and understanding. That sounds like relief.
Exactly. And for the new goals, the script says the old ones are deleted. What replaces them? It just says new goals. I'd suggest giving a concrete example of a value shift. Maybe you move from chasing a title to pursuing mastery.
Or you stop running the Impress Strangers program and start running this Satisfy Self protocol.
There you go. It sticks with the metaphor, but gives it a practical application.
It's fascinating because when you give people a clear image of the destination, they are so much more willing to endure the journey.
Totally.
If you just tell them it gets better or you'll vibrate at a new frequency, they might not believe you. But if you tell them you will be able to answer the phone without your heart racing, they will walk through fire to get there.
It anchors the hope.
It anchors the hope in reality. It proves that the narrator actually knows what the other side looks like and isn't just guessing or wishing. It gives the listener a real target. Excellent. So we've really dissected the narrative arc, the metaphorical language, the agency, and the specificity of the ending. This is a lot, but it's all in service of making the piece land with more impact.
We have covered a lot of ground.
We have. So let's recap. Here are the 4 main actionable takeaways for the author of This Will Find You Right Before the Great Reset. First, tighten that middle section. The narrative loops on the crash and waiting too many times. Condense the examples, merge the domestic and social impacts into one punchy section, and move that engagement prompt up to keep the story moving.
Don't let the listener get bored in the waiting room. Keep the tension high.
Second, infuse the mechanical metaphor with somatic human description. The OS metaphor is the hook, but it can be cold. Use language that describes the physical sensation, like overheating or chest tightness, to make sure the emotional resonance is there.
Make us feel the glitch, not just read the error log. Connect the computer to the body.
Third, shift the language from passive force to active surrender. Instead of telling the listener, you have no choice, frame it as choosing to allow the update. This empowers the audience and stops the message from feeling fatalistic.
Turn the victim into a participant. Reframe the waiting as holding space.
And finally, provide concrete examples of the upgraded state. Replace the vague promises of new frequency with tangible outcomes, like setting boundaries without guilt or waking up without anxiety.
Right.
Give the listener a clear, high-definition destination.
Show them the features of the new software. Don't just tell them it's version 2.0. Give them a reason to finish the update.
This script has such a powerful core and a relatable hook. With these adjustments, it can move from being an interesting observation about burnout to a truly transformative tool. We'd love to see how these changes impact the flow and feel. Please revise it and submit it back. We're eager to see the version 2.0 of your work.
Looking forward to the update.
That's it for this. Keep writing, keep refining, and we'll see you next.